Tonight, the Prime Minister's warning we are 1 minute to midnight in the climate crisis, and the Mayor says he agrees. As the COP26 summit got underway today, Sadiq Khan arrived with mayors from around the world determined big cities would play their part.
We're using the opportunity as mayors of global cities around the planet to discuss what we can do together to lobby our national leaders to make sure COP26 is a success.
But for the generation that will live with the consequences of all our actions, hope and ideas for a better world.
They say we could move to Mars, but if that doesn't work out, we're stuck here.
Everyone will be hurt if it doesn't stop. We'll get hotter.
Also on the programme, I'll do it for as long as it takes. The husband of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe vows to continue his hunger strike. And no to Nuno. The Spurs manager is sacked after just 4 months. Good evening. There are very few things the Mayor of London and the Prime Minister agree on, but when it comes to climate change emergency, Sadiq Khan today said he stands with Boris Johnson. The Prime Minister opened the COP26 summit in Glasgow this afternoon, saying the world is at 1 minute to midnight, having run down the clock on the climate crisis. Sadiq Khan, meanwhile, travelled to Scotland along with mayors from other major cities around the world. They all have different ideas about how big cities can help slow rising temperatures, from planting 1 million trees to only using renewable energy. Our political correspondent Simon Harris is in Glasgow for us this evening. Simon.
Duncan, anyone trying to get from London to Glasgow yesterday might have wondered if they were going to make it after autumn storms brought such disruption to the main rail line. Today, thankfully, there were no such problems, which was just as well for one trainload of VIPs who had plenty to discuss on the long journey from capital to COP. They're not world leaders, but they claim to represent 700 million people. Today, a dozen mayors from an organisation called C40 posed in front of a branded train at Euston before the journey to Glasgow. C40 is a collective of almost 100 cities from around the world, and Sadiq Khan has just been elected their new chair.
We're using the opportunity as mayors of global cities around the planet to discuss what we can do together to lobby our national leaders to make sure COP26 is a success.
Among the mayors on board today, Yvonne Aki-Sawyer from Freetown in Sierra Leone, a former city accountant from Wimbledon, and Anne Hidalgo from Paris, the socialist candidate in France's presidential election. Tensions between France and Britain over fishing might explain why she declined to talk to the media. They might be from different continents, but these mayors have one thing in common. They can all point to what they see as the real effect of climate change on their own cities. From mudslides to rising sea levels to wildfires.
We have had, over the last few summers, record-setting levels of heat, and that particularly impacts our most vulnerable. We depend on a river system that is in a drought condition right now, and we have to plan ahead for that.
The sea level water is going up. And when the water is going up, the sea level water, the sea water is eating all the agricultural land.
We kind of can feel immediately how radical the extreme weather events have become, how regular that they've become, and this kind of new abnormal, whether it's not having enough water, whether it's wondering if your home is going to burn. We feel that every single day in Los Angeles.
Landslides, flooding, water shortages, extreme heat. These are happening now. It's very, very real. On the 14th of August 2017, we had a mudslide in which 1,000 people died in 3 minutes.
Beyond the train windows, the rain-swept landscape of northern England must have felt like a different planet. As the mayors rattled north in their first-class carriages, they shared their ideas on how they're tackling climate change.
What we're doing, to answer your question, is planting 1 million trees. Freetown, the tree town. It was launched in 2020. We've planted 550,000 as I speak.
I hope that London, for instance, can do as Los Angeles has and have 100% renewable power. We'll be 97% of the way there.
You've got a bit more sun than us.
We've got a lot more sun, but you've got a lot more wind. So it's a fair trade.
Phoenix has a cool pavement program. It's the largest in our country. And we apply a sealant that is a lighter color coating to our streets. We've found that it reduces their heat temperature about 6 degrees Celsius.
If they can do any kind of garden, rooftop, though I am going to rebate the 10% tax, city tax.
London's mayor isn't often heard praising his predecessor, but that's what happened today.
I commend our Prime Minister for trying to be a good host, for trying to persuade other leaders across the globe to take this issue seriously. He's got my full backing in relation to trying to persuade other leaders to take this seriously. We're on the same side here.
4.5 hours after leaving Euston, the mayor's made it to Glasgow. Ahead is a lot of talking as they try to leave their mark on COP26.
Simon, the eyes of the world very firmly on Glasgow then.
Yes, and there were some stark warnings from the Prime Minister today about the consequences of failing to tackle climate change. Boris Johnson said world leaders will be judged with bitterness and resentment. And in his stark message to them at the opening of the conference, here's what he had to say.
Humanity has long since run down the clock on climate change. It's 1 minute to midnight on that doomsday clock, and we need to act now. If we don't get serious about climate change today, it will be too late for our children to do so tomorrow.
It was striking to hear Sadiq Khan being so fulsome in his praise of the Prime Minister earlier, perhaps more evidence of his renewed effort to build bridges with the government. Duncan.
Simon Harris in Glasgow, thank you. Well, as politicians and campaigners from London and all over the world begin their 2 weeks of talks on climate change, here's James Webster with a quick explainer of what we can expect from the summit.
COP stands for the Conference of the Parties, and here the parties involved are every country in the world that signed up to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 1994. The treaty legally binds them to, amongst other things, avoid dangerous climate change. A COP has taken place every year for nearly 3 decades to try to make sure that promise is delivered. At COP21 in Paris in 2015, countries signed the Paris Agreement, which committed them to try to limit the rise in global temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius. It was left to each nation to set their own targets for reducing carbon emissions. Their own targets haven't been severe enough. One of the main objectives of the negotiations in Glasgow is to secure more ambitious targets, but also to commit nations to protect communities and natural habitats from the impact of climate change, and to raise at least $100 billion a year in global finance to help them do so. More than 100 world leaders attend over the first few days before the serious and complex negotiations begin between their representatives. The talks are scheduled to last for 2 weeks until Friday the 12th of November, but often overrun.
James Webster there. And there will be plenty more coverage from Glasgow and COP26 on the ITV News at 6:30. Here's a look ahead now with Mary.
Coming up, we're live in Glasgow as the COP26 climate conference gets underway. Boris Johnson warns of the need to act now while Joe Biden makes a new pledge to cut emissions. Sir David Attenborough warns leaders to think about the young. And even the soaps get in on the act. We're on the set of Corrie and Emmerdale to hear how they are talking climate change. Well, do join me for that and the rest of the day's news at 6:30.
Moving on now, and police have launched a murder investigation after the body of a man was found on the side of a road in Harlington. The victim has been named as Mohammed Mohyuddin. Detectives were called to Sipson Lane at just after 6 a.m. on Sunday after a passing motorist noticed a 28-year-old lying on the ground. It's believed he was suffering a cardiac arrest. And demonstrators carrying coffins walked across Westminster Bridge today, demanding a ban on smart motorways where the hard shoulder becomes a traffic lane. There have been rising safety concerns following several fatal accidents. 2 years ago, Richard Ratcliffe went on a 15-day hunger strike outside the Iranian embassy. He credits that action in getting his daughter Gabriella back home from Iran. He's now striking again, this time outside the Foreign Office, in the hope he may finally see the release of his wife, Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe. She's been detained in Iran since 2016 on spying charges, something she's always denied. Her husband Richard has been speaking to Rags Martel on day 9 of his protest.
Hunger strike, day 9.
How's everything going?
Yeah, today's day 9. It's getting quite cold. A bit tiring, not really hungry. But yeah, so it's beginning to sort of slow down as an experience.
Pitched in a tent outside the Foreign Office, Richard Radcliffe says his protest is directed at the government and its continuing failure to bring back his wife from Iran.
We'd been dissatisfied for a while with the government strategy. It felt like it's just managed waiting, it's not going anywhere, it's, there's lots of words but no actions. It felt like, well, if the government won't do anything, then we need to.
Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe was detained in Iran 5 years ago while on holiday with her daughter. The aid worker served a 5-year sentence after she was accused of being a spy. She's now being threatened with more time in jail.
The status quo is not tenable. You can't just leave an innocent person being held and played with like this by the Iranian authorities for it's now 5.5 years.
This story has its roots in the 1970s when Britain sold tanks to the then Shah of Iran. Tehran paid for the order, but when the Islamic Revolution happened, the UK government kept the money and the tanks were never delivered. Nazanin's MP says the UK must repay the $400 million it took 40 years ago.
And it's very unfortunate for her, an innocent woman who's been caught between two countries for a debt that she didn't cause, used as a bargaining chip. We've got to make sure that if we want to prioritise her and her family and their young daughter, we've got to pay the money back.
I feel incredible sympathy for Richard and Nazanin, and what I would say to him, as I did say when we met, is I'm doing all I can to get Nazanin home.
When was the last time you spoke to Nazanin and how is she?
Yeah, spoke to her this morning. Worried by this, if I'm honest. Husband on hunger strike in the street is a strange thing for any wife to go through, and worried for Gabriella, our daughter, and how the impact on her is.
And you mentioned your daughter. How is she finding her father on hunger strike?
Yeah, a bit unsettling the first couple of days. The more recent days, we had a few of her classmates down. We were carving pumpkins. That made it more fun. We'll see as the days go on. I think the longer this goes on, the more morbid it could become. And there's obviously, it's important we protect her from that.
When do you decide to stop?
If it goes too far, then I'll end up in hospital. But it's an extreme act. It's meant to be embarrassing to the government. We're looking for reaction.
He now faces another night in the cold with no food, waiting for justice. Rags Martel, ITV News, Westminster.
Still to come, it's been a sunny start to November. We'll have the forecast a little later. Plus,
They say we could move to Mars, but if that doesn't work out, we're stuck here.
we get the next generation's take on the climate crisis. But first, after just 4 months in charge, Nuno Espirito Santo has been sacked today by Tottenham Hotspur. He had the pitch-perfect start, receiving the Manager of the Month award in August after 3 wins to top the Premier League. But a 3-0 loss against Manchester United on Saturday was the final straw after a run of losses in 5 of the last 7 league games. The question Spurs fans are asking right now, who's the right person to replace him? Anton Allen has been finding out.
The sound of impending doom. When now former Tottenham Hotspur manager Nuno Espirito Santo ordered this substitution, he wouldn't have known it would be one of the defining moments of his last game at White Hart Lane.
Martin, I must admit, when I saw that it was...
The chorus of angry Spurs fans sealed Nuno's fate. By Manchester United's 2 goals later in their 3-0 victory, one manager had silenced his critics. The other was sacked this morning. Today at White Hart Lane, fans weren't surprised Spurs had sacked Nuno after just 4 months in charge.
I think for Spurs fans it was good news this morning.
The players looked uninterested for quite some time.
Big players like Kane just haven't been really showing it a lot, and that might be down to the manager.
It's sad to have a manager getting sacked, but he wasn't the right man for the job, and yeah.
Nuno was not Tottenham's first choice to take over from Jose Mourinho, yet in August, after a winning start, he was voted Manager of the Month. But by October, the combination of 5 wins and 5 losses, plus a playing style that gave little to cheer about, left the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust disappointed with the board that hired him.
Daniel Levy's talked about Spurs' DNA. Well, our DNA has not been reflected, I hope, in the performances we've seen lately. We want to see good football, we want to see winning football, obviously, but we want to see attacking football as well.
When Tottenham Hotspur first announced they were building this stadium, it was under the promise it would enable a financial future whereby fans would have games to cheer for. Well, at the weekend, boos echoed around White Hart Lane. So the next manager, their first task will be to win back those fans. Expressions oozing watch Nuno's last game in charge. He already knows who he wants to be the next Spurs manager.
Like, we lost the game, but we won El Sacico. Nuno's gone, and hopefully we can get Antonio Conte. But what I want to know is what's changed from when we were talking to him last time. Have we got a loan off Newcastle? Because I want to know if Conte is going to be backed. We need Antonio Conte to be backed.
Italian manager Antonio Conte has been tipped to manage Spurs after successful spells turning around the fortunes of Juventus and Chelsea.
He knows how to rescue a sinking ship. When he took over the Chelsea job as well, it was after Mourinho had basically burnt everything to the ground before he left the previous season. And Conte's been there and done that.
If Conte is appointed this week, the start of his revival of Spurs could begin on Thursday night. Antoine Allen, ITV News.
To women's football now, and Arsenal are through to the final of the FA Cup. They beat Brighton 3-0 yesterday. Beth Mead scored 1 goal and created 2 others, with Leah Williamson sealing the victory. They've set up a tantalising final against rivals Chelsea after Emma Hayes' team beat the holders Manchester City 3-0 in the other semi-final. It'll be the 3rd time in 6 years the 2 teams will meet in the final at Wembley on December the 5th. Next tonight, an exhibition of portraits of black people living in the UK has opened at Bluewater in Kent. Its creator describes it as a symbolic moment after he was wrongly accused of theft at the shopping centre earlier this year. Portrait of Black Britain by Londoner Cephas Williams aims to celebrate identity and diversity while also highlighting everything we all have in common. Helen Keenan has been to find out more.
Tell me a little bit about the people who feature in these portraits.
Well, you've got people from, all over.
Designed to show the humanity in diversity.
This is probably the most important thing I've done in my life to date.
This photography project is a celebration of identity, and the aim is to create the largest collection of photographic portraits of black people in the UK.
I don't really have a favourite image. Do you know what I mean? I think all of the images speak to me in a different way, and it's very privileged to be able to have done something like this in my lifetime.
The first phase of Portrait of Black Britain.
The Portrait of Black Britain exhibition is at Bluewater in Kent. Cephas describes it as a symbolic moment, showcasing his work at the same shopping centre he was once wrongly accused of theft, an incident the owner has since apologised for.
He ran up to me, grabbed me from behind. I thought I was being attacked. So I look at him, I see the badge, and he says, did you buy those products? And I said, yes. As a human being, I should have complained at that point. But because as a black man, I'm used to that. It's kind of like, oh, he grabbed me. If I tell him I paid and keep it moving, he'll be all right. Which is, we shouldn't really have to even think like that.
The names of those who feature in the collection are etched on the wall. So far, there are 220. Leon came along today to see his.
It feels special, it feels unique, it feels powerful.
So was this quite an emotional experience for you then?
Definitely. I did feel emotional kind of seeing that, along with all the other photographs, because it's a collection of Black Britain, that's what it's about, and it's about people being together, standing together, and really making that bold impact.
For Cephas, his art also has a message and hopes it will inspire change.
People throw out the word diversity so much that I feel like it's lost its actual meaning. And you often see diversity as something other than or different than, and it's never really showing where we have things in common. And so I say Portrait of Black Britain as a body of work shows the humanity in diversity.
London is just the first step. The plans to grow the collection to 1,000, showcasing his exhibitions and message across the UK. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
Well, there's just a few more days for Black Londoners to contribute to one of the biggest research projects ever undertaken that's trying to understand what it is to be black and British. The national survey is being backed by Sean Wallace, barrister, academic and chaser on the ITV Quiz Show, and he joins me now. Hello, Sean. Tell us about the project and what it aims to do.
Well, the Black British Voices Project is the first contemporary survey for Black Britons, and it's a survey that looks at a whole range of diverse subjects, ranging from housing, education, law, the police and religion. And it's been on now for the last 3 months, and it applies to anybody over the age of 16. But the main and principal objective is to build our own narrative and to have an up-to-date picture on our views and how we're feeling. And this data does not exist anywhere at all, and has the important and stated aim in assisting policy development and change. And it closes on the 7th of November.
Yeah, I think we've got just a few more days to it. So what will happen to all that data, all of those interviews, once they're all collated?
Well, we're hoping, as I say, it will help with the policy development and change. So hopefully the policymakers will take notice in relation to what I consider to be, and everybody considers to be, very, very important data indeed.
What questions in there gave you pause to reflect and think?
Questions like, what are Black people feeling? Do they feel engaged? Because, as I say, Black people generally feel misrepresented, misunderstood. And I think it's important that we have a comprehensive survey and proper data which reflects what we as Black people are thinking in contemporary society today.
As a Black man, which sector has been hardest for you? TV, the law or academia?
I would imagine academia growing up as a young boy, because I was told most in no uncertain terms that I wasn't going to actually succeed in my own dreams and ambitions. And as I always tell this particular narrative, my careers teacher at the time said, Wallace, you're going to end up in prison. I mean, she was right about that, only she forgot to say that I haven't seen my client, I can go home again. So I think it's important that Black people feel a sense that they are contributing to society, because we have talent, we have the ability to succeed. And I think it's important that the data reflects what we're thinking and feeling.
And you entered the legal profession in, was it the 1980s, when, I know it's still overwhelmingly white now, but it was even more white then, wasn't it?
It was, but we have seen a dramatic shift in relation to the diversity within the profession. We're seeing a lot more Black females, which is good. We're seeing a lot more Black female QCs, which is even better. But sadly, in relation to the judiciary, we need to make greater strides in having a diverse and representative judiciary.
If I may, on a lighter note, the chase, are you really as competitive as you seem on screen?
Yes, I am. We all are as chasers. We're there to win. Although it would be fair to say that I'm the only chaser, we'll go and see the contestants afterwards, whether they win or lose. But I'm not there to smile, I'm there to win.
And tell me quickly, what's your worst subject, just so we know?
Soaps.
Say it again, sorry.
Soaps. Anything to do with soaps, I don't watch. I don't care. I remember one time I got a question wrong in relation to the colour of Marge Simpson's hair. I've never watched it, so I don't know.
Now we know your Achilles heel. Thank you very much, Sean.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And for more details on how you can get involved and share your experience, just head to our website, itv.com/London. OK, let's get a reminder now of our main headlines in London this evening. The Mayor of London has joined world leaders at the Climate Change Summit in Glasgow. Sadiq Khan was recently appointed as the new chair of C40 Cities, a global network of almost 100 cities committed to addressing climate change. And this lunchtime, the COP26 conference officially opened with rally calls from the Prime Minister, Prince Charles, and Sir David Attenborough. 120 world leaders were listening. It's hoped they'll commit to cutting emissions and limiting the rise in global temperatures. And in a few minutes, we'll hear from some younger people with lots of ideas, so maybe they should listen to our programme. From the politicians and plenty of protesters, excuse me, I think we're going to go on to the weather, aren't we? Let's have a look now. Sorry, here's Martin Stew, who's been to Greenwich.
What would you want to tell them about climate change?
At Haymo Primary in Greenwich, they're learning all about COP26.
Hands up, who is worried about the environment?
Members of their Global Goals Committee told me what they're concerned about.
Ice caps are melting and creatures in Antarctica don't get homes.
I'm very worried about the animals and the forest.
I'm worried about people littering because it really hurts animals.
This generation will live with the consequences of our choices. So how are they feeling?
I feel kind of nervous. If we don't stop climate change now, in the future it'll be a lot worse than this. We don't know what's going to happen next to us.
It's going to get to the point that Earth is just dead.
They say we could move to Mars, but if that doesn't work out, we're stuck here. Everyone will be like hurt if it doesn't stop.
We'll get like hotter and hotter. Then like, I don't think we'll have any snow at all, possibly.
And how does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me quite upset.
A bit sad because, well, it's affecting my future and everyone else's.
Are you worried about it? Are you scared about it? Hands up. Who thinks that we can sort things out before it gets too bad?
My message will probably be...
Stop investing in petrol and diesel cars.
Stop from factories using, from burning coal. Stop the rich people having private planes. Make all cars electric and make them cheaper. Just want everything to be balanced.
Are you confident that they're going to make the right choices?
Yes. I'm not that confident. No.
Why not?
Because, well, like, they haven't done anything in years. Sometimes leaders promise something, and sometimes they don't actually do those promises.
Not very confident, but I'll give some faith.
Yeah, I'm worried, but I'm also excited that they're doing this, and they're not doing it in, like, another 20 years when the world is really bad.
Hands up who's confident that our current leaders are going to make the right choices. Not so confident. Is it too late? What do you reckon?
I think we can, but if we do stick to how we are now, we can't.
We have to make a change now.
The children from Haymo Primary School speaking to Martin Stew there. Time for the weather now, and it's been a sunny start to November, but how's the rest of the week looking? Here's Manali with the forecast.
Making the most of it, whatever the weather. Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Hello there, good evening to you. This is how our weather is shaping up as we head through this week. It's not too bad. We've had a breezy start, but the winds will ease. A couple of showers expected tomorrow, but then from midweek onwards, it's mostly dry and fine. But the days will be chilly and some night frost to watch out for as well. Now, the low pressure that brought us this weekend's horrible wet and windy weather, that'll start to pull away to the north. Gradually from midweek onwards, high pressure will start to build in from the west. So things settling down for much of the week. It's looking dry, spells of sunshine, but a cold northwesterly wind will mean our temperatures will be pretty chilly by day and by night. As we head through this evening and night, well, maybe the odd shower to the south of us, but on the whole, largely clear skies. And with the winds easing down as well, we're likely to see some pockets of mist and fog forming, and some of that fog could be dense in places. Temperatures for our towns and cities holding up above freezing, but for rural parts, it will get a lot colder than that, so we could well see a touch of grass frost come dawn. So into tomorrow morning, any early mist and fog lifting very quickly, quite a chilly start to the day, but then plenty of sunshine through much of the morning. Into the afternoon, though, don't rule out the odd isolated shower. Temperatures reaching highs of 12 to 13 degrees Celsius. Here's confirmation of the outlook. The chance of a couple of showers tomorrow, but on the whole, through the rest of the week, it's looking mostly dry and fine. Spells of sunshine, but temperatures will be on the chilly side by day and by night. Gradually, as we head towards the weekend, temperatures starting to pick up as we'll see a change in wind direction once again. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye for now.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
And that's how we start the week in London. I'll be back with the late update after news at 10. Coming up, Mary with the ITV Evening News from Glasgow. But from me and the rest of the team here, bye-bye.